started playing with vegetarian diet. Again, just looking for longevity, seeing if I can make it work. I did that for about 3.5 years. Ended up really getting in a position where I was pretty sick. I couldn't shake a virus that I should have been able to. Could not get enough protein, and I was constantly hungry. Couldn't keep muscle mass on. The pain of it caught up with my stubbornness. Once we get past 40, you start seeing what's on the outside is a pretty good indicator of what's going on the inside. It's a little harder to outrun the diet at that point, and the body's ability to recover starts to slow, and the lack of exercise is going to start showing up. Say in our 50s when we start paying for the sins of our 30s and 40s. It becomes more and more evident that your level of fitness is a pretty good indicator of what's going on with you metabolically.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We have with us Zane Griggs today. Zane, good to see you, man. How you doing today? It's good. I saw you back in KetoCon about, I don't know, it's been a month now, I think, something like that. You're still looking good. So,
yeah.
Where are you located at?
Just outside Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. I saw you posting something about something in Nashville, so that makes sense. Yeah, I got to Nashville for the first time in, I think it was December. I spoke in front of the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, went to some little Bitcoin Park deal where they had some meat there as well. But it's good to see you.
Oh yeah,
you've got a book out, a new book out. I think it's something like Kicking Ass Over 50 or something like that. I can't remember what the title was, or something like that. Yeah,
Kicking Ass Over 50.
Got it.
Have one next to me.
Awesome.
Here.
You and Ken wrote. It looks like you and Ken Berry collaborating on that one there. So let me just because we just chatted briefly at KetoCon, so I didn't get really a chance to really chat much with you. Tell me a little about your background. Were you an athlete your whole life, or what's kind of your background? Where are you coming to this at?
Not really an athlete. I played a little sports in high school, but really in my 20s, I got real curious about longevity, really, which is an odd time to do that. But I really started exploring with diets, with fasting, juice fasts, all kinds of crazy stuff. Of course, there was no internet then, right? So it was just reading, trial and error, talking to other people. I'd run into a trainer, I'd ask them 20 questions. And I realized this is an area that I'm naturally curious in. So I just started moving in that direction and became fitness trainer, a health coach, and that was in the late 90s. So I've been professionally working as a trainer for about 25 years. So some of it's coaching online, about diet and accountability, and some of it's like one-on-one with my clients in their homes. It's been a career of working with a lot of people for weight loss, for disease, dealing with injuries. Most of my clients are 40 to 60 years old, 65 years old, 70. Some are, one's 80. So it's really been about managing lifestyle, diet, low carb with my clients in 2002, 2003, intermittent fasting in 10. So it's just been snowballing into where I am now, always trying to stay curious and learn and help my clients out. Yeah,
no, obviously you're practicing what you preach, and you're in tremendous shape. And I mean, how old are you? Because I know you're somewhat over 50. You're like, where are you at right
52.
now? 52. So yeah,
52.
You're not quite as old as me, but you're pretty close. I'm 56.
I'll get there eventually.
Hopefully you'll get there. Yeah, hopefully I'll get older too. But that's the thing. Like I see so many people. It seems like life catches up to you at some point. Like for me, it caught up to me when I was about, 42. I realized I couldn't continue, particularly nutritionally. I'd always been training, but nutritionally, like I was, it made a huge difference once I started to figure out that nutrition had such a big role. So you said you had this evolution over time, juice fasting, intermittent fasting. Right. What did you find with those different sort of techniques, either the benefits or the shortcomings, if you walk through your evolution and what you found and mistakes you might have made?
Oh, wow. I've got plenty of mistakes. I learned a lot from mistakes early on, especially before we can connect with each other now. Actually, I started early 20s. I started playing with vegetarian diet, believe it or not. Again, just looking for longevity, seeing if I can make it work. I did that for about 3.5 years. Ended up really getting in a position where I was pretty sick. I couldn't shake a virus that I should have been able to. And the doc who I spoke with, he said, I think you could have shook, if it wasn't for your diet, you should have been able to probably shook this up, but your immune system's so low. And I was very thin. I was having a hard time keeping muscle on, working out. I had already done some of the juice fasting then, it was more of like a cleansing thing. But the vegetarian, I'd done everything. I was blending up almonds to make my own almond milk because we didn't have almond milk back then. And I thought this was good. Or eating black beans and rice every day. And I could not get enough protein. And I was constantly hungry. Couldn't keep muscle mass on. And I finally got the pain of it caught up with my stubbornness. And I finally started adding some eggs and some whey protein. And all of a sudden, I'd forgotten to drink coffee for 3 days. It was like, I didn't have it every morning. All of a sudden, I didn't need it. I'd forgotten about it. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I've been missing something. Added in some fish and then snowballed from there. And that was the mid-90s. I was 20 something. So we all do dumb things in our 20s. Mine was vegetarianism. And then in 2002, my wife had our third child. And at that point, we're in our early 30s, 31, 32. And she just had a hard time shaking the weight. So she tried Atkins. And of course, Atkins, even then, had been around a while, but was considered, especially in the fitness community, kind of like a fad diet. But you know what? It worked. She cut out carbs. She ate a lot of meat, a little fruit here and there, maybe. And she lost the weight. All my peers were like, oh, that's dangerous. That's a fad diet. You need carbs to survive. You need carbs to... Well, but it worked. I started playing with it myself just as a diet, just experimenting and then moving my clients in that direction. And it worked for them too. It's crazy stuff. At this time, I was realizing that saturated fat and cholesterol were not really our enemies. And I was eating 3 or 4 eggs a day, plenty of meat, and quite polar opposite from my 20s as a little vegetarian stint. And then came, like I said, 2009, 2010, started reading about intermittent fasting and how much that helped me stay lean. I really enjoyed how I felt. And I experimented with it, of course, for myself before helping my clients. For my clients, it was a great weight loss tool. And they curbed their hunger. I guess about 5-6 years ago, really started paying more attention to the animal-based community and realizing just how many nutrients are available in animal-based foods. I was, from that point on, up until that point, thinking we got to have vegetables for all these minerals and vitamins and fruit and so forth, and not really realizing how much was available, bioavailable in animal foods. And so that really moved the needle again. We're really focusing on more animal-based, truly animal-based diet, where it made up the majority of my plate. And then really paying attention to how I felt after I ate, particularly like raw vegetables, salads that I've been so into for years, and realizing I don't feel so great. My stomach's a little bloated. And of course, by then I'm in my 40s, and that's when we start getting more sensitive to things. I think you start paying attention. You start feeling like you have to offset age by being more disciplined. And I just noticed I feel a lot better when I have even less of these foods that I thought were so fantastic for me, and really focus on the eggs, the meat, and felt confident that I was getting what I needed from that part of my diet. And I think it has been, I try to stay intellectually curious and not get too locked into one thesis, but I really found that just paying attention to what my body said, once I was healthy but older, I was able to feel the response my body was having much quicker, and realizing what was good for me, what was working for me much quicker than, of course, in my younger days.
Yeah,
I think the combination of the intermittent fasting, the animal-based diet, those are some great tools that I think can work for really anybody, whether it's maintaining or reversing disease. And so that's what I've been implementing with my clients as much as to those who would listen.
Yeah, I think the point of being older has its disadvantage in that you're just old, but the advantages are very quickly when you mess up. And so your body gives you feedback very quickly. Hey, I shouldn't have done that. So when I was in my 20s, you go out all night drinking and you get up the next day, go to the gym. Now, if I tried that, I'm like 3 days, I'm like miserable. So I'm like, no, thank you. And this is the other thing that some of these folks that are listening, you've got a lifetime basically of exercise and training and taking care of yourself, just like I do. And that's one of the reasons you can see guys in their 50s, 60s that still are in really good shape, because they've maintained that discipline for years and years. So it's a lot easier to maintain it than it is to gain it. Yes. And I would, if anybody young listening to this, if you're a teenager in your 20s, get after it, stay in the gym, don't become obese, don't get sick. And the biggest predictor of being sick in the future is being sick today. And so you got to turn that around. But for a lot of people that are listening, they may have not done that. And so what do you find is there's a lot of ways to do this. And I think there's some consistent way, high quality protein, exercise, get good sleep, so on and so forth. How do you find that you can get people to be consistent with it? Because that's the hardest part for most people, is consistency over time. And so what kind of maybe tricks have you learned, or how do you motivate people properly, or maybe you don't? I don't know. What are you finding about that aspect of it?
That's a great question. It's something I've really been tackling the last few years, because, you and I are kind of nerdy with this stuff. If we learn that something is great for us and works well for us, we're going to do it just because we know we're better for it. We're driven by it. We're driven enough to go to the gym. We're driven enough to stay consistent with the diet because that's what our passion is. But most of my clients, that's not their focus is somewhere else. So I try to connect, whatever their goal, whether it's their career, their family, or if they're kind of moving into that part of their life where they're letting off the gas a little bit career-wise and travel and spend more time having fun, then connect their ability to do that and staying out of the hospital, staying healthy with the decisions they make every day. And a lot of my clients are really they're affluent but successful business people, corporate people, and they love their career. And they're at a point in their life where their experience and their wisdom and their sphere of influence, they're killing it. The last thing they want is have some kind of physical ailment, some sort of something that could have been prevented, take them out of the game. They want to keep closing deals. And so to associate, look, how much is 10 more years in your career worth to you personally, financially? What does that look like? Is that enough to get you to change the way you're eating? Is that enough to get you to be consistent with your exercise? But just find what motivates them. I'm not thinking that they're going to be as motivated as I am by the science of it, but where's their passion? What drives them? What gets them out of bed? And then connect the dots between that and taking care of their health.
Yeah, it's amazing to me because, a lot of people with affluence, they have access to the best food, the best trainers. They've got all the best healthcare. And then you got guys like, I use an example, Bill Gates, who's one of the richest men in the world, but he looks like he's in pitiful shape. The North Korean dictator is over 300 pounds now. And he's basically got everything he could possibly want, even though he's an evil dictator. But again, there's still people that have all this influence and access to anything, and they still can't do it because they're basically addicted to I think, cheap, crappy food is ultimately what happens. What about people that may just be listening that maybe don't have access to all the wealth all the things that wealth buys? It's like the average person is working a 9-to-5 job, maybe construction or something like that. They got a big old belly. They eat fast food for lunch every day. How do they turn it around?
Well, that's a great question. I think it can be simple. I think it can be as simple as hamburger. And if you can afford a box of cereal, at the price, if you look at the price per pound, you can afford a hamburger. It's really not, it shouldn't be too difficult. I think sticking with whole food, avoiding processed food, without it being it doesn't have to be the finest cut. You're going to have a lot more benefit from that health-wise than anything else you could buy, the fanciest, sexiest cereal or whatever logo they put on the box, the bag, or the bottle in the aisles. If you're sticking to the outside of the grocery store, that's kind of the mantra with helping people change the way they shop. But if you're having dairy and meat as your primary source of fat and protein and calories, and then anything else you might add is whole food, you're going to be a good spot. And that doesn't take a huge shopping bill. And as far as movement goes, I work out at home. I don't like to share. I'm really going to a public gym. You can do that with basics, bands, push-ups, pull-ups, getting out and just moving outside. It doesn't have to be a big investment to really make a big impact in your health.
Yeah, my garage, I probably train 98% of the time in my garage and by myself most of the time. So you have to be internally motivated and stuff like that. With regard to general strategies for training, I try to convince people to stop being sedentary as the first goal. But then beyond that, right, where do they go? Do they start strength training? Do they start doing cardio? Do they go running? What have you found the most success with?
Well, I definitely move them towards some level of strength training, even if it's just a half an hour a few times a week. If that's all they have, then find some level of intensity just to hold on to muscle, especially once we get past 40. Sarcopenia is a real risk for most of the hormones start tanking. We need to tell our muscle to stay attached to our body, or we're going to eat it. We're going to use it for fuel, right? We're going to eat it up. We won't be able to regrow it as quickly either. So I really try to focus on some level of intense training. And by intense, I just mean they're moving to a point of fatigue. And that, again, could be with a band, or it could be a gallon of milk, just something that causes some fatigue in that muscle. Compound movements. So it could be basics as simple as some sort of squat or lunge and a push and a pull. And maybe some core work in there as they get more ambitious to get started. And that's enough to hold on to muscle. And then find something you enjoy doing and just get out and do it. If it's just a walk on a regular basis, that's fine. But find an activity that you're motivated to do, you have fun doing. And it doesn't have to be high intensity. Moderate movement that just you enjoy is tremendously beneficial. And you can do it often without risk of injury or overtraining. You're just moving. And I think that's an important aspect that doesn't have to be such a structured or highly structured exercise routine.
Yeah, you'd mentioned you'd focused on longevity, and my always response to longevity is, I don't know, good luck. I think there's things that make you healthy, and you continue to do those things, and you're likely to better have a quality of life. What, just from your perspective, what do you think things move the needle as far as longevity? Is there fitness goals, strength goals, body composition goals? What are you aiming for? You're a very lean, fit guy. That's what I think. I think having lean muscle, not excess body fat, is where we want to be, but I want to hear your thoughts on this.
For sure. Lean muscle is good. You don't have to be big at all, but lean muscle, not excess body fat. I like to look at blood work. Honestly, if I can get a client to give me blood work, primarily including things like fasting insulin is real important for me to pay attention to, because I think that's an indicator of hormonally where they are, where their metabolic health is. And they may, people are going to look a little different at working out. Not everybody's going to be as lean as you and I could get. But if their fasting insulin is a good range, right? And if let's say they get them to do a DEXA scan on their body fat, they don't have a lot of visceral fat growing around their liver, around their organs. I think those are two metrics that are highly underestimated, or just they're overlooked too often by their general practitioner. That really need a spotlight shine on. We can manage visceral fat through diet and exercise, as well as the fasting insulin level. We're gonna hold off disease. We're gonna hold off metabolic disease. We're gonna slow aging. And again, those are two that most people just aren't looking at.
Yeah, fair enough. Let me ask you, because a lot of criticism say just because you're in shape and not, and you can exercise well, doesn't mean you're actually healthy. But my counter to that is, yeah, it does, because the vast majority of people that see it aren't healthy are overweight and obese, and they can't do anything. But what has been your, like you say, you're checking labs and some of these quote unquote objective measures. What is the correlation between people that are lean and muscular and in shape versus those that are maybe overweight and out of shape? Does that correlate pretty well with what you're seeing lab-wise typically, or whatever metric you're using?
I would say yes. I would say it definitely correlates, especially as we get older. If you're maintaining good muscle mass and leanness, it's because you're doing something right. I can see a younger, so let's say someone 35 or younger, they can be gym fit, but their diet is frightening, like things I wouldn't touch. And they're taking all sorts of stuff. They may be eating excess sugar and a lot of processed food. And so it's not showing up yet. Or it's not, if you look at their labs, maybe there's some indication of it, but they got enough growth hormone and testosterone going through their body that their body is recovering from it. But once we get past 40, I'd say that's when, you start seeing what's on the outside is a pretty good indicator of what's going on the inside. It's a little harder to outrun the diet at that point, and the body's ability to recover starts to slow. So that would mean the inflammation caused by that bad diet and the lack of exercise is going to start showing up. I think in our 50s, when we start paying for the sins of our 30s and 40s. And it becomes more and more evident that your level of fitness is a pretty good indicator of what's going on with you metabolically.
Yeah, I'm into that. I agree 100%. I think that's something that guys like Peter Attia talk about, certain like metrics he likes. How long can you hang from a bar? How long can you wall sit or do squats or something like that? It's all arbitrary, but in generally, you want to be in the top whatever percentiles of your age cohort for various things. And unfortunately, being in the top third for strength or fitness is not a very high bar these days, because you look around, the other people our age, and they're like, man, you just can't imagine what it'd be like to live in their body and how uncomfortable they must feel. Well, how long does it take to turn it around for people? Let's say you got some guy, let's just hypothetically, he's 55, he's 50 pounds overweight, he's out of shape, it's pre-diabetic, blood pressure. How long can that person expect to turn this around to maybe have a good quality life and be relatively lean, you think?
That's a great question. I do think it's easy to say it depends and try to wiggle out of that one. I think you can make a big difference in getting to a stable, healthier point within 6 to 8 months. As far as being lean and solid, I would say most people need to stay at it for a good 2 years, not only to solidify the habits, but to see the effects of those habits. If they're out of shape at 55, they've spent probably a good couple of decades getting to that point. I think changing habits, again, can be done in a matter of a couple of months. And I've had people lose 40 pounds in a matter of 5-6 months consistently. But sometimes the blood work wasn't quite there. Fasting insulin wasn't quite coming down yet. They weren't at a place where they'd want to sustain it. But I think 2 to even 3 years where you get to a point where you're really at a fitness level or a health level where you want to say, I'm sustaining this. I think giving yourself 2 to 3 years to get there with consistency is probably the safest for someone in their 50s.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. I know these people get frustrated on a diet for 6 months and they're not Superman or Superwoman yet. And they're like, sometimes stuff takes years and years. I've been at it for, like I said, I've both been at it for decades. And so it takes a long time to build up that sort of resilience. And you can, from you, not to your clients, but from you personally, because you're in, like I said, you're tremendous shape. What does your particular routine look like? How often are you training? What does your diet look like? You just describe that if you don't mind.
Okay. Training, I could say what I noticed as I got closer to 50, I've been focusing a lot on lifting, but not much on mobility. And that started becoming more of an issue as I got older. And so I really shifted some of my training time to more mobility movements and moving through greater ranges of motion, but the floor work, kind of animal flow stuff, stretching, because I didn't want to end up one of those guys that kind of works like a robot in the gym. We've all seen them. And so I lift enough to maintain like really consistently 3 times a week with what I call intense strength training, and then do 2 or 3 mobility type sessions, a lot of floor work and just moving through ranges of motion with body weight. I include sprinting, especially not as warm sprinting, once or twice a week, do a few short sprint sessions. And I like that because it just keeps me explosive. With less risk of injury than trying to, say, do cleans or something like that with a barbell. And I'm including more bands these days, like the big heavy loop bands, because I like working into different ranges or different points of intensity I feel like I can go closer to failure without the risk of the bar or heavy weight thing being over me when I'm working out by myself. And then a little zone 2 here and there just to get the training, the effect of the cardio without overtraining. But it might be a walk with my wife through the neighborhood or just get up on a spin bike for 20 minutes. It's just enough, but it's not really the focal point. The focal point's the strength training, the mobility, and then keeping the sprinting in there once or twice a week. With regards to diet, it's 70%, 80% of my intake is some sort of animal food, is meat usually. And then I do include some fruit and a little sweet potato here and there, depending on training, my activity level, how I'm feeling that day. I found that, I think I mentioned this to you at KetoCon, it kind of helps me sleep, be a little more steady. And I think I could probably adjust that, but I'll confess again, I spent so many years doing intermittent fasting, hardcore with fasted workouts, and maybe not paying as much attention to my recovery as I should have. I'm in a place where I'm trying to fix some of my sleep routine while I'm having these cortisol spikes and heart rate spikes in the night here and there. So I'm just trying to find some balance, and I'm trying to correct, and then I'm going to reassess and see what I can really get away with, how many stress levels I can pull. I think it was over pulling them for a while that I probably could have sustained when I was 40, 42, but at 50 or 52, it was a little more than I could handle for my body. And so I'm allowing a little more whole food carb in than I was before to start balancing out that cortisol and getting more into a better sleep routine. And then I'm going to reassess and see what I can get away with a little bit less of that. It's so by no means high carb. It's just a little fruit here and there, especially post-workout.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that works well for a lot of people. I see that there's some people that can add it back in, some people can't. I think it depends on how diabetic they might have been, how addicted they were to sugar, what other issues are going on. Some people with autoimmune disease, it just doesn't work. And for some people, lean athletes that are very active have a greater likelihood, and particularly being younger. Younger also makes it easier. But as far as, let's just talk about some basic protein. You said about 70, 80% of your diet's coming from animal products. Obviously, you're eating a decent amount of protein. Do you have any targets you try to hit daily? Or are you just eating to your full, or how does that work for you?
Target's about 200. I can, depending on how busy I am or how active, it might be 175 sometimes, and it might be over 200 others, but the target's generally right around 200. I weigh about 210 most of the time. So hitting 200 is a good ballpark for me. And in about these days, again, sleep issue, about 3 meals, and I'm trying to eat earlier. I'm trying to finish eating earlier in the evening than later. That also helps my sleep as well. But yeah, I've got a target generally 200 grams of protein a day from meat.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm probably close to 3, but I'm 260 or something. I guess I'm a little bigger. But let me ask you, you'd mentioned you experimented with pretty intense fasting for a while. Do you find it at this point in the game, it's a detriment to you, or are you staying away from that, or did you find some issues with that?
I found issues only in regards to my sleep, and I think I was just over leveraging it. I think it's a great tool, especially for weight loss. But for me personally, it's something I'm trying to find balance with now, doing less of it. And something I think I'll bring back in once I've corrected my schedule a little bit, and use it more periodically, where I was hitting it like a 24-hour fast every week, and then once a week, and then 16 to 18 hours every other day for the most part, with fasted workouts in there before I even started eating, sometimes maybe 2. And so just for me, after 10 years of that, it was like, maybe it just caught up with me at my age. And so I'm trying to correct, and I'm going to bring that back in because I think it's a great tool for longevity and autophagy and all the things we hear about intermittent fasting. I just think it's one to be managed. It's not, I don't have to hit that nail as hard as I used to because I am healthy, and I want to use it enough to get the benefits I need without overkill. And so I think as we age, we have to continue to reassess our recovery is one thing, but how we're pulling these stress levers, because my body's not going to be able to handle the same amount of stress it did 12 years ago. And that includes career stress, family stress, all the things count. So I think it's a benefit. I just think it's a tool that needs to be used skillfully from this point.
You're 52, you're in great shape, you're lean, you're muscular, and most people would be very happy with where you're at. Are you happy with where you're at, or do you guys still have goals? Are you trying to put on more muscle, trying to get more fast, fitter? Or are you just trying to maintain where you're at? What's your current goal?
I don't have any current strength goals. My goal really is that mobility. I want to move like I see some of these 30-year-olds moving. I want to have that. I want to feel like my hips and my shoulders are moving with more range of motion, and I can we have 4 kids, and one of them we still have a latecomer who's 11. And I want to be able to keep up with him. I want to be able to play. And not that I couldn't before, but I see how he moves, and he's so agile. And I don't think obviously I'm not going to move like an 11-year-old, but it was such a part of my routine that I neglected for so long that right now it's become my focal point, is moving better, having more agility, more mobility in hips and shoulders and spine, because I think that's going to serve me as I get older in just avoiding pain, I see trainers in their 50s already getting hip replacements. And I'm like, there's a warning sign right there. There's a warning sign for me. I have 3 trainers working in the same studio who all had hip replacements between 48 and 55 years old. That's not, and they didn't see it coming, but they're very steady with their workouts. I think there's something there to pay attention to with mobility and flexibility and just be able to move. And that's where my focus is right now. I'm really moving in that direction, sustaining the muscle I have, sustaining the leanness for the most part, and then moving better.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think, and it's similar to me, I spend a lot of time building muscle. I want to maintain it at the very least. And if I'm trying to build it, I'm more or less just maintaining. You have to have that mindset that you're going to keep pushing hard so you can at least maintain, because it gets challenging after a while. And as far as, the hip, I just wonder, you look at these people's diets, and maybe they're eating a very high carb diet, because a lot of these people are in great shape and they end up with hip replacements. And we've seen bodybuilders never been fat. I just wonder, because I know absolutely that diet has a role on there. And we know when we have high insulin levels, it leads to inflammatory cytokines in the joint. And so that may be something in addition to the mobility stuff, which I think I have involuntary mobility when I go to jiu-jitsu, when somebody turns me into a pretzel and I get forced into positions that I don't normally get into. But yeah, I agree. It's very helpful with that. As far as you've got one younger kid, and you got a couple of maybe ones that are maybe late high school.
I got 3 in their 20s.
3 in their 20s.
3 in their 20s. 21, 23, 27.
Yeah. Mine are, I've got 17, 15, soon to be 13 and 10, but similar.
Wow.
4 of them as well. And they keep
That's a busy busy time.
Yeah, it is. It is busy time, but it's fun stuff.
It is.
What, as far as we talked about protein requirements, how are you, because you said you used to do a lot of fasted workouts. Are you shying away from that now? Do you feel like you like to have fuel before you train now?
If I can train first thing in the morning, usually I'm seeing clients first thing in the morning. If I get a chance to train earlier in the morning, like somewhere, let's say before 10, then I will usually be fasted. I won't eat first. But if I know I'm not going to get into the gym until 11, 12, 2 o'clock, something like that, or into my gym, I should say, then I'll go ahead and have some breakfast. But I'm not necessarily worried about fueling up before the workout. I'm just going to make sure I'm getting some protein and some fat in my body and the nutrients. I eat a little bit of liver, like a couple ounces of liver each day, just to get my micronutrients in there. And so I usually have that before 10 o'clock. So I just time it around the workout there, but it's not so but if I'm not going to work out till 2, the last thing I want to do is fast until then. And right now that may come back, but right now that's not where I'm at. And so I'm just trying to get 3 good meals in and finish before ideally 7 p.m. eating so I can digest it, but not as many fasted workouts as I used to do.
Yeah, when you said sprinting, and I'm a huge fan of sprinting, I think the metabolic effects of sprinting are tremendous for us. Are you talking about just getting out and putting his tennis shoes on and running up the hill, or is it bike? Is it just variety of sprinting tools, or what are you doing for that?
I'm running. I actually to get out where it's grassy. I know it's like uneven sometimes, but I don't like the road. I don't like the impact of the road for any kind of run personally. So I'll get it's either a dirt trail or for more of if it's a 200 or 400 meter, but sometimes I'll just get out and do on the grass and get a 100-meter run and do, several sets of that. Let's say 8 sets of that. And so it's full out running, sprinting. In the winter, when it's a little wetter, then I'll do that on my spin bike, or if I can get to a rowing machine, I love that. But when the weather's nice enough, I'll get out and I just run sprints, from 100, 200s, or 400s.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. And then as far as rest period between, and one of the things I find is people they don't tend to rest enough between sprints so that they can maintain the intensity. So we see these Tabata style routines where it's 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest, 20 seconds on again. I'm like, you're not recovered enough to do another sprint, quite honestly, in my opinion. But so if you're doing a 100-meter sprint, how long would you rest between that? A minute or 2 or something like that?
Yeah, I might vary it. I might do, just so I can push my endurance a little, or my recovery a little bit, I might do a 100, rest a minute, do another 100, and then I'll rest maybe 2 or 3 minutes and then repeat that. So I'll have a shorter recovery between 2 of them, or maybe 3 at the most. And then I'll have a little more recovery, and then I'll go back at it. Just to make sure, like you said, get enough recovery so you can actually have a lot of power output. But I can push a little bit by a limited, let's say 45-second to 1 minute rest between a couple of them. And I feel like I'm getting that kind of a training effect from that for recovery.
What, for new people that are coming out, what kind of mistakes are you seeing to sabotage their ability to get long-term benefit from this? Are you seeing some things where people are just making obvious mistakes and either they're going to get hurt or they're just it's going to make them quit?
With sprinting? Is it good?
Just in general, the exercise in general, I think.
Yeah, I do see a lot of people going out and trying things. They're going to look at social media. They're going to see someone doing something that is advanced, and they go out or they start running. I just see people go out and start running. They just get new shoes. They hit the road. They start running. Maybe they've got some weight to lose, and they haven't adjusted their diet yet. What a big mistake that is. Set yourself up for physical injury, more hunger before you've changed your diet. I like to see people adjust their diet first, and not just the quality of. See, so many people are eating throughout the day, right? They're eating 6 different times in the day. They're eating meals and snacks. So I try to have people start off 3 meals a day, clean up the diet, right? Quality of food, and then move into exercise so that when they get hungry, they're actually eating quality food and not just putting more garbage in their body. And start with just some simple movements, like I mentioned before, real simple compound movements. And some activity, especially if they're overweight, walking, but to get out and just put on a pair of running shoes and go start hitting the road. I think many people are setting themselves up for injury and for being let down and discouragement, especially when marathon season comes around, or someone wants to do a 10K, 5K, and they want to do these competitive events. And I get the drive. I get why that motivates them. But if they're not physically ready to do that, I see more risk than reward in many cases with those kinds of endeavors before they really have to put the work in to go after something like that. Something they can't ever do that, but they need to put the work and respect the event or respect the movement or what that requires of them in order by putting work in their diet and with getting their body in shape to prepare for it. And I think it's just overly ambitious too soon and not really putting in the reps that they need to first.
Let's talk a little bit about your book and the genesis of the book. What prompted the idea to write a book? And maybe you can discuss a little bit what one might find inside of it.
Okay. It's funny. I had asked Dr. Ken Berry, to be on my podcast. It was in 2020, and a lot of us weren't doing a whole lot of events in 2020. So a lot of us are locked at home. And I asked him to be on my podcast. It was kind of an early time in my podcast. And he was like the first notable person I had on there. And it was a great conversation, had a good time talking to him. And he realized how old I was. And I was 49 at the time. And he just asked me, so would you think about writing a book for guys like us who are 50 years old or older about diet, exercise, things they need to do to regain their health? I'm like, yes, whenever, just let me know. And so that really kicked it off. About 6 months later, he hit me up to get started on it. And we just started throwing these ideas together and had to chisel it down into one voice for a book, which is not always easy with two different authors. But we were on the same page with a lot of things. And what we address primarily in the book is the three foundational elements of health. It was just your diet, your fitness, your exercise, and your sleep. And if you don't have those in place, obviously there's no reason to start chasing biohacks or any other tricks or supplements or anything else. You got to have diet, exercise, and sleep in place. And so we really try to address some of the misconceptions about diet and the reasons why we have these misconceptions about the corporate takeover of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the DGAC for dietary guidelines and medical research, and unpack some of the fallacies around our current nutrition guidelines and ideas that we've had and why we have them, and then give simple steps on how to correct them and change. So in each case, we help people with just putting these into their life in a sustainable way, because most people are busy, and keep it really simple. But it's primarily diet, exercise, and sleep. And it's geared towards me. That applies to everybody. We say in the book, it's a guide to optimal health for men 50 and over, but just because we're talking real straight, where it's very direct talk, sometimes it's a little jabby, like get your ass off the couch and get moving kind of thing. And we keep it very good, very direct, very almost guy to guy talk. But in that respect, everything in there, of course, applies to everybody. But again, explain the complexity behind why we're in the place we are, why we have these screwed up guidelines, and then give simple steps as what they can do to start changing their life.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with those three basic foundational pillars: sleep, diet, and exercise being probably, by my view, the most important three. There's other things that are decent. People out there, they think they're going to stand in front of a red light machine or drink some apple cider vinegar and it's going to change their health when we're not taking care of these very basic principles. You've got to major in the majors, not the minors. And I see Charlie commenting that he's got your book and he's reading it. He's enjoying it and likes it quite a bit. So that's good to hear. Let me ask you, because the sleep one is often one we disregard. It's like when you're a kid, you never wanted to go to bed. You want to. We don't like to sleep because it's boring. But talk a little bit more about sleep. Everybody knows it's important, but how do you get a good night's sleep, or what do you guys talk about, and maybe talk about some of the maybe unknown benefits of sleep?
Great. Yeah, sleep, very important. I think through the 80s, a lot of us heard people would disregard sleep. We heard leaders talk about, I'll sleep when I'm dead. 4 hours of sleep a night you hear a lot of prominent people talk about just getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. Wow, what a long, and that the dangers of that should frighten us. Now we know the risks to our health, metabolically, to neurologically. With sleep, I think it starts with setting your schedule. What's your schedule? When you got to wake up, give yourself at least 7 hours, right, of time to sleep, and respect that schedule. Don't let the Netflix spinning on your series start the next round. Turn the TV off. When it's time to go to bed, and respect your sleep schedule the way you respect your work schedule. And because it is the baseline of your health, but then also prepare yourself to sleep. Because so many people, especially busy professionals, they need time to land the plane. And too often it might be reaching for a cocktail to do that. But I think moving away from work-related activities, work-related emails, early on in the evening, or at least a couple hours before they go to bed, eating, I think finishing a heavy meal at least 3 hours before they go to bed, avoiding blue light in general, wearing blue light blockers if that helps, if that's necessary, but really stay off the close screens, all the phones, the iPads. Those are triggering our brain to want to stay awake. It's daylight. And so simple things like that to help land the plane, let our brain know it's nighttime. We're supposed to be relaxing. We're supposed to be calming down, not having a lot of heavy food to digest before we go to bed. And then again, honoring that schedule, and our body will start adapting to that schedule and give it time to get enough deep sleep and recovery to organize those memories, to release growth hormone and heal our bodies. And so that's really what it's simple. It should be simple, but we have so many distractions and so many unnatural things in our life these days. We don't live by the sun anymore. And there's so many things to keep us awake. Like I said, almost like kids, we just want to stay up and keep being entertained or keep working in some cases. And that's not honoring our body's need for sleep. Every creature sleeps. Every living thing has time. Even dolphins, half of the brain will sleep while they're swimming. And then the other half will sleep while they're swimming. So it's just, there's an example for sleep in every living creature. And to think that we don't need it, when for as long as we've known anything about eating, we've had to sleep. We've slept and moved with the sun. Or the sun came up, we're moving, the sun goes down, things slow down. We need to consider that as part of how our body works best, and as close as we can, as much as we can. But it's been overlooked far too long. And I think we're seeing it it's part of our metabolic syndrome, the case of our metabolic syndrome we have. That's such a epidemic right now. To think that it's not an element in what we're seeing over the last, say 50 years, I think would be underestimating its impact.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the dolphins turn off half the brain. I think we got humans that have the capability of doing that, but based on some of what I've seen out there. But you've got the kids ranging from 11 to, I think you said 27. And you've been taking care of your health your whole life. I don't know what your wife has been doing with that, but have you been able to impact positively their habits, do you think? I mean, by being an example, do you think your kids are maybe fitter than the average kid, maybe?
Yes, I think they are. They have one, good work ethic, but they do understand it, I think, better than most of their peers. I think they're seeing it. Their peers' parents didn't look like us. My wife's quite healthy as well and thin, fit. And so they see it as we have aged in our late 40s and into 50s, and we don't look like their parents. But it's funny you mentioned that. Just about a month ago, our daughter lives in LA. She's 27. She was talking on the speakerphone to my wife and our 11-year-old. And she said, she knows there's always an argument, pull back and forth. This he's 11. He wants to eat what his friends eat. And she said, listen to mom and dad. They're amazing. They understand when it comes to food. They know what they're talking about. Just listen to them. Trust me. And I didn't think I'd hear that from her for another at least 5, 6 years, maybe 10 years. But she's out on her own, 27. She's trying to make a living. And she's seeing the impact of diet. And our 21-year-old is quite meticulous and in school, she'll get up in the morning, go to the gym, go to work, school, preps her own food, packs lunches. She's always prepping food, always to take with her. And she has that discipline, and she's applying it to her health as well as she can. And to see that as a college kid at 21, I'm happy for her. I'm excited to see what she's going to be like in the next 10 or 20 years, because she's only going to learn more from that as her body gives her that feedback.
Yeah, I suspect you guys are going to be crappy grandparents, because when the grandkids come over, you're not going to be feeding them a bunch of garbage and candy. A lot of kids go to grandma and grandpa to get spoiled. But
raw milk and steak.
They may actually like that. Who knows? But anyway, as far as, let's see, the book is available, Amazon? Where do people get the book? Did you guys self-publish or have a publisher, or what did you guys do?
We self-published. No, we decided that we were going to go at it through social media and through talking to great people like you on podcasts. And so it's on Amazon in paperback and ebook. We make an Audible this summer. So eventually it will be in Audible form, hopefully by the end of summer. But yeah, it's on Amazon right now. And the ebook, we've got 100 plus studies in the back of the book in a readable font for those of us 50 plus. It's the font, not your typical references with little tiny letters, with some summaries in there to back up what we're saying. Those are the people who want to get a little geeky and look it up. We've got 100 plus studies back there regarding saturated fat, cholesterol, sleep, seed oils. And on the ebook, all the links are live. So you can go straight to that study and check it out for yourself if you want. So it's a nice, convenient part of the ebook.
Yeah, very nice. Good to see. As far as you said, you still take clients. You take them online, or you take them locally, or you both, or how does that work for you?
A little bit of both. I still have some local clients I work with in their home, and I have virtual clients. It's more of a coaching situation, like a weekly check-in. Many of them, as they get started, they're texting me their food, that kind of thing. And so it's more about, and now with remote clients, it's much more geared on their lifestyle habits, so diet, troubleshooting, creating accountability and sustainability. But yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah, good for you. Okay. And then as far as I saw Ken back there when we saw him at KetoCon, is his conscious, because I would view you as more the workout guy and Ken's been more focused on diet over the years. Is that where the book contribution came together like that, or how did you guys divvy up topics?
We both spoke on nutrition, and then I did take on the fitness element. We talked about blood work in there. So he definitely handled that side of it and used his blood. He's got a blood work book. So we kind of started taking the material from that, or a pamphlet he has. Anyway, he handles more of the medical side. But I'd say on nutrition, it was definitely a collaborative, because that's definitely a passion of mine. But it was very much collaborative. That's why I say it was really hard to, sometimes it was a mess. The draft was a mess. We were both of us contributing. We got a lot of overlap, a lot of repetition, and then just trying to make it sound like one person talking. But no, it was definitely quite a mix. And that was a difficult yet fun part of it, I'd say, as well.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, when I wrote my book, it was just me and the editor, basically. And yeah, I'm glad I had her, because she fixed some stupid grammatical errors I was making. I don't even speak English that good. I'm going to try to talk about another language, but I'm barely good at English. So it's kind of one of those things where
we definitely had an editor, and that really helped clean it up and help us with that, because it was a big mess with both of us trying to talk over each other. But no, the editors are beneficial.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, got it. Awesome. Let's see, Zane, we've got just a few more minutes left.
Okay.
You're on social media. I know I've seen you on Instagram. You're just inspiring. Sometimes people watch mine, they get inspired, but I watch other people, and you're one of the people I see that, hey, look at this guy. He's an old guy. He's kicking ass. And so what are your social media contact points if somebody wanted to find more?
Zane Griggs Fitness on Instagram is my most active platform, I would say. I do have a Facebook page. I'm not super, it's more repetitive of that, but I'm on there. ZaneGriggs.com has all of my socials on it. So if you go to ZaneGriggs.com, that'll have a link to whatever it is you want to go to. But I'm most active on Instagram as Zane Griggs Fitness.
Okay. And just spell it ZANEGRI. Is it 2 G's or 1 GS?
2 G's. GS.
Okay. Griggs, GRIGS.com. All right. So that'll get you there. What else do you have? Do you have any more speaking, travel engagements for the rest of the year? Anything else where people can see you live, perhaps?
Actually, it's funny you say that. Tomorrow, I know this podcast won't be out tomorrow, but some people are watching live. We're actually hosting called the Alt Health Summit here in Nashville. It's an all-day summit, 9 to 6. We've got a lot of health experts. Ken Berry's going to be there. We're going to do a book signing begin. We're going to sit on a panel we're going to talk about health after 50. We have a couple other fitness health experts coming in, as well as some brands serving the health community. We have 6 or 8 different brands and their founders coming in to share what it's like to have a startup in this industry, trying to really cater to our community. And so that's going to be fun. Now, that's the first of the kind. I put together. Meat Mafia is hosting it. And then I'd say I'm going to go to the low carb symposium coming up in Orlando, not speaking, but I'm going to the low carb, but I'm going to be there to just meet with people. I had such a fun time at KetoCon meeting everybody. I love connecting. So I'll be at that one in August.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, I forgot Ken was in Tennessee as well. That makes sense. You guys can hook up pretty good. So good for you. All right, well, Zane, thank you so much for doing this and taking your time out of your day, and good luck on the book, and look forward. I'm sure I'll run into you again at some point because I circulate around the world and do that sort of stuff. So thanks for writing the book. Thanks for getting the message out there, because I think we've got just a crisis of people that need help, and the more people that are willing to show them the way is good. So thank you very much, Ken. Or sorry, not Ken, Zane. All right.
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I very appreciate it.
All right, guys. We'll see everybody tomorrow. You guys take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye, Zane.